to full screen.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for muting me, Matt. Welcome to another episode of Auto No Betters in Off the VAR. My name's Luke. I'm not Carl tonight, so you haven't got the beautiful tones of the Republic of Ireland, but we have got Jimmy the Ref, who will replace those tones, we hope, and also OKB regular Gilly. How are we doing, gents?
Great, thank you.
Not too bad, thank you very much.
Good stuff, good stuff. I just saying before that Jimmy can't tell me and Matt apart because we both got bald heads and beards. But I said, well, I'm definitely not Carl because he's got a decent head of hair on him. So,
well, grass never grows on the busy street. So
that's right, that's right. So thanks ever so much for joining us, Jimmy. Just for those who don't know, Jimmy is an ex. League of Ireland referee. I think you did that for 35 years. Is that correct?
Yeah.
35 years, and you're now a referee assessor for the League of Ireland, correct?
Yeah.
Perfect. So he's got a bit of experience. So we'd like to say we know what he's talking about, and we're going to actually go over tonight the Liverpool game briefly, and then more recently the Scum game as well. So first things first, I suppose. The Liverpool game ended in a 1-1 draw. There wasn't, from what I can remember, I mean, I've slept since then, but from what I can remember, there weren't that many decisions to be made in that game. It was quite sort of free-flowing. But one thing that does come to memory was the Trent Alexander handball, which VAR looked at as well. I don't know what did you make of that, Jimmy?
Well, Anthony Taylor, for me, is one of the top referees in the Premiership. He's a no-nonsense referee. He allows, common sense to come into the game. And I thought he handled the game very, very well. The Trent Alexander handball, you have to be very conscious of a referee when he looks at this type of thing. Is the hand in an actual position? Is his hand moved towards the ball? Does it deflect the movement of the ball? No, for me, it wasn't a penalty. VAR didn't take too long to look at it. And if you look back at the game, the reaction from the Leeds players, was very muted. They weren't really interested in it. Some teams would shout and roar, penalty. But, the Leeds knew themselves it wasn't a penalty. But overall, in that game, I thought Anthony Taylor had a quite good game in it. I thought he let the game flow. He wasn't the centre of attraction, like some referees can be. He did what he was there to do. And the most important thing, in games like that is that you have a person sitting there on the ground that watches every move that the referee makes. All the officials, not just the referee. So the officials are very conscious of that as well. And the markings they get after each game can affect, whether they have aspirations of going on to the Champions League panel or the FIFA panel, whichever. And it's down to the referee observer as to how he marks the officials. Yeah. And even if you are on the UEFA and FIFA panel, you have to keep a certain mark up. And if you don't get that mark, it can, determine whether you're going to continue on those panels or not. So the referees and all the officials are very conscious of the person that's in the ground watching them do the job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's quite a nice feeling that we can't remember that much about the refereeing performance from the Liverpool game. Now, I could just be totally forgetful, but yeah, from what I can remember, there wasn't that much. Is dubiosity a word, Matt? You're clever.
Dubiosity is not a word, but dubiousness might be a word. But I think one of the things that might prompt the lack of memory specifically around that is that the game was almost a sideshow that evening because of what had gone on before it.
Correct.
And, the 24 hours before it. So I don't want to make a big deal about that specifically, but I remember the goals, I remember the handball potential, and a couple of other elements. But largely and really strangely, especially for us, the game was almost it wasn't irrelevant, but there were so many things overshadowing the whole of football that remembering specifics is quite difficult, I think.
Yeah, I think you're quite right. I do seem to remember. Was there a Salah stamp on the goalkeeper?
There
wasn't City game.
It wasn't actually a stamp. It was more or less a coming together. There was no stamp really. The keeper actually had his hands on the ball, and I think he actually pushed it away from himself a little bit. But Salah just touched him. He didn't trample on him. There was no issue.
It wasn't the goalkeeper. That was a totally different game. I'm losing the plot. Well, didn't Salah stamp on Rafinha? Was it Rafinha during the game?
Rafinha didn't play, did he? He was injured in City game.
Bloody hell, man! I need to stop sleeping. I think just because I just forget everything. There was a moment within the game, and I'm sure that I jumped up and shouted at the telly, and I said, "He should be off here, or at least VAR should be looking at it." And they didn't look at it, and I can't remember. If anybody's listening who can remember
just tell me.
It was Llorente, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, forget
Llorente were limping around for a while, wasn't it?
Forget it. Forget about it.
Yeah, there was an incident. There was nothing in it. I remember the incident. There was nothing in it whatsoever. There was no malice in it whatsoever.
Yeah, let's. So in terms of,
if I remember it now, I think it was Llorente slid in and got the ball, and Salah landed on him, didn't he?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, there was he didn't. His body weight didn't actually come down on him. There was no issue with that.
Okay, no. I mean, it's always difficult trying to review a game that's happened over a week ago. So I think in terms of what you saw, Jimmy, how would you rate Anthony Taylor's performance then out of 10 if you were to score him as an assessor?
Well, if I was observing him on his performance, I would certainly have given him 9.2, and that's a mark that would keep him on the UEFA and the FIFA panel, and that because I think he is a very, very good referee. I think as I said previously, he lets the game flow, and he's certainly not the centre of attraction. And the one thing that he doesn't allow is players surround him. Mm-hmm. He deals with whatever incident straight away. There's no nonsense with him and that, and I think he's very fair. We often see a lot of social media about referees and that he should wear this shirt or that shirt, the opposition had 12 players, but that's not the case. And certainly Anthony Taylor, his interpretation, his application of the laws of the game, for me, is up there with the top, in the top 10 referees in Europe.
Fair play. With that in mind, then let's move on to something that's a little bit more current in the memory and absolutely needs ripping to pieces. Craig Pawson and Mike Dean's performance. Manchester United, the scum, the horror, the team we love to hate. We didn't get much help, did we, from Craig Pawson at the weekend? And I think there's a number of challenges and things we can probably talk about, but the first thing that flags up in my memory was in the first half, wasn't it, when Harrison was through and he clipped it and it hit Luke Shaw's hand. VAR looked at it and decided it wasn't a penalty. Jimmy, what was your view? That was the second half, wasn't it?
It certainly wasn't a penalty because his hand was behind his back. It wasn't in a natural position. And there's very little you can do when the ball comes at you at an angle like that. He didn't move his hand towards the ball, so it didn't affect the flight of the ball in any way. It was one of those incidents where, a split decision has to be made, and, you've only a second to make it, and he made the decision. But, of course, with the protest, he had to go to VAR. They looked at it, no. And I agree, 100%, no question about it. It had been a very, very harsh penalty and totally unfair. If he had moved his arm towards the ball, certainly, but in the position that his arm was, no, definitely not.
Jimmy, do you not think then, having seen the one the night before, Callum Wilson for Newcastle, which was given as a disallowed goal, no benefit of the doubt for the attacking player. Do you think things have shifted somewhat in terms of benefit of the doubt? Because I think had Patrick Bamford handled it in a similar position and then belted the ball in the back of the net, I have a feeling that we would have been penalised and that would have been a free kick the opposite way.
Well, actually, you're 100% right. That is the change that have brought in. That if it benefits a striker, then it has to be disallowed. If a goal comes off it, it has to be disallowed. But if a defender handles it in a position like that Luke Shaw had, and I mean, it'd be very, very harsh to do anything about it. For me, he didn't make a movement towards the ball. The ball just came off his hand. The trajectory of the ball wasn't shifted because of the ball touching his hand. So there was no issue. You know, if you look back at that game, actually, I forget what defender it was from a set piece in the Leeds area. We could have been actually penalised because was it Laurent just had his hand out, his arm up, and his hand up actually outstretched.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked, you know, there was a couple of viewings after. Now, VAR didn't even look at it, in fairness to my team. And I don't particularly like my team as an official, but they didn't even look at it. But it would have been, you know, more justifiable in giving it a penalty for that than Luke Shaw one.
Really?
Yeah.
So I watched the game live on DAZN, and the co-commentators on there was Michael Owen and Paul Scholes.
Yeah.
Now at half time they said they got away with one and that it probably should have been a penalty. And then after the game, Michael Owen changed his mind, and Paul Scholes was still adamant that probably in this day and age with the VAR rules and VAR there, that probably still should have been a penalty. Now I don't think it was a penalty. I mean, I think in this day and age it probably would have been, but I don't think that's a penalty ever. Like it's not how a penalty should be given. I mean, I'd have felt. Well, I wouldn't actually because it was scum. I was going to say I'd have felt bad, but fuck them. But yeah, I mean, what is the actual official rulings around it, Jimmy? Because it's so uncertain, and there doesn't seem to be any level of consistency throughout the game. Whether you're looking at the Premiership.
But look, you've hit the nail on the head. Consistency is the key word in all of this, and there's certainly no consistency in this type of situation. And that prior to a couple of weeks back, the law stated clearly if the ball hit your hand, if it was down by your side, your hand didn't move toward the ball, then that was the law.
Mm-hmm.
Unless your hand was maybe 6 or 7 inches away from your body, then it was a penalty. The law changed that any handball inside the area was a penalty must be given, and because of VAR's influence in it, every time a ball hit a player, the winter VAR, the game was held up for 2 or 3 minutes. Sometimes the referee had to go to the online monitor and have a look at it. So it was killing the game. So they decided, to tweak the law a little bit with regards to the handball. That if the ball hits a defender's hand and it's not in an unnatural position, his hand doesn't move towards the ball, then it's not a penalty. Now, by the same token, if the ball hits a striker and his hand is in a natural position, but he can actually score a goal, it drops down to his foot and he scores a goal from it, then it has to be disallowed. And that's the inconsistency. It doesn't make sense. Either, you hear people say it was an accidental handball. There's no such thing in a game of soccer as accidental handball. It's either given as a free kick or not. Mm-hmm. There's only one free kick that's given for handball. It's a direct free kick. So if there's accidental handball, then you'd have an indirect free kick. So there's no such thing as accidental handball in the game of football. But for me, they have to get it right before the start of next season. And I know they are looking at it, and also the offside law, that's going to be looked at as well. But certainly I wouldn't have given it against Manchester United as much as we all dislike them. I certainly wouldn't have.
So, just a couple of things on that then. So, and I know what you're saying, and watching the replays, you can see that his hand doesn't move towards the ball. But in contrast with the Newcastle one the evening before, the ball's come quite a distance. It's 8 or 9 yards before it's got to him. So, although his hand's not moved towards the ball, he's had an opportunity to move it and hasn't.
Well, if your hand, that's another good point. You also take into consideration the distance between the player that the ball touches his hand and the kicker of the ball. If with a yard or that distance away, even if your hand is in an unnatural position, it's very, very hard to give a penalty. And referees are told, no, in an instant like that, don't. But you're 6 or 7 yards away, and the ball hits your hand, and if your hand is any distance away from your body, then it is a penalty. It is a penalty, and that law has always been there. They haven't tweaked with that. That is still on the statute books. That if your hand or arm is any part, a distance away from your body, and the kicker of the ball is any distance away from you, well then, a penalty or free kick if it's outside the box.
The other thing was just a more general thing. Is 4 or 5 seasons ago we were told, more about the offside rule than anything else, but we were told that the game was in favour of the attacker because we wanted to see more goals. It just feels to me like with VAR, with the offsides and under VAR and just in general, and especially with the handball rule, as you've just explained, that a defender handball in the same way that an attacker handball is treated differently. It feels like it's entirely switched the other way again.
I can ask you a question, Matt. 5 or 6 seasons ago, whoever said that the offside was tweaked to favour the striker? Well, I've heard that.
Not referees. It was in the media.
I always remember watching the Champions League match. It was 2 or 3 seasons back, and a well-known pundit was given out about a player that had been sent off. And one team had 11 players at the end of the extra time, and the other team had obviously 10. And the team that had 11 players, one of the players left the pitch, and the pundit was given out, and the commentator, and this is on Sky, as to why wasn't he standing in the centre circle with his teammates? He can't. You can only have the same amount of players in a penalty shootout. If there was only 7 left on the pitch. So pundits and the journalists, they get it wrong. I've never heard, thinking, you would yourself give the benefit to the doubt. And that's common sense. If it was a very tight call, you would certainly give the benefit of the doubt. But certainly in the teachings that I give to referees and officials, don't tell them to do it.
Jimmy, where is that? Where is that benefit of the doubt at the moment then? Because the way I see it, these lines that they're drawing for the offsides, they're minimal. And I mean, we've seen probably across this season, I would probably say between 15 and 20 really, really tight decisions. So where I've seen that in other countries, I think it might be Holland actually or something. What they do, they draw a line of a certain thickness of the defending player and a certain thickness of the attacking player. And if those lines touch or overlap at all, the benefit of the doubt is with the attacking player.
Yeah.
So if those lines are that close that they think, actually, do you know what? We can't decide. There's a cat's knacker air in it, and we cannot decide which is whether it's onside or offside. They've only got one angle in that ground as well, bearing in mind, to take these lines from. They just see. I agree with Gilly. I think there just seems to be so many reasons for not giving a goal. Where's this benefit of the doubt for the attacking? Where are we going to see these goals coming from?
I think you misunderstood what I said. Nowhere in the laws of the game are referees being told, or assistant referees, to give the benefit of the doubt. We use it as a common sense, and that
right.
I certainly don't tell referees when they're going out onto a pitch. If there's a tight situation, you give the benefit of the doubt. I leave it up to the officials to make up their own mind. Now, in the Electricity League, we don't have the VAR, and there's never any hassle at games. I've seen watch games where there is dodgy offsides given and that. Well, I think it's more benefit to have the human error in a game of football.
Absolutely.
It creates for a good argument, and a bit of banter and that. But
it means you can celebrate straight away as well. You don't have to wait half an hour for VAR to decide.
I enjoy watching football. It's been part of my life. I married into a family which was part blue and red. My late wife was from Birkenhead, and she hated football all her life. Absolutely hated it. Her dad and her brother, they were absolutely staunch Liverpool. The other part of the family, then they were Everton. And she couldn't understand how she married someone that was so much involved in the game. And I always remember, she said to me one time, My greatest wish would be to stop football. If she got, and she actually did. What she did, she stopped it for a complete weekend after she died suddenly. So the players used to, as a mark of respect to me, all football was cancelled. But it's just part of my life. And I would never tell a referee, you go onto the pitch, you have to do this. I let the referees make their own mistakes, dig their own graves. And by doing that, they become better referees. They're not robots. And I think in part, some of the top referees in Europe, they come across like that, with the exception of the referee last night. I thought he was pretty good. But a couple of incidents in that game last night, mainly Neymar.
This is the Paris Saint-Germain.
Paris Saint-Germain.
Right? Yeah.
He allowed Neymar to get away with a hell of a lot. And until, UEFA and FIFA and all the leagues come together and say, this has to stop. How many times did Neymar go down last night?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, I'd probably say 7, 8, 9, 10 maybe.
Yeah, but, until such time as a referee has the courage to make a stance and say, that's it, lad, yellow card. Like, we'll go back to the Manchester United game. Bamford got the yellow card in it. Why did he get the yellow card? Petulance.
He booted the ball away, didn't he?
Yeah, he booted the ball away, yeah.
Yeah. And, the referee was 100% right. Now, I know it was Calvin Phillips was involved in an incident prior to, no, it was...
Costa had been
suplex.
Basically, he'd had a wrestling move on him.
Wan-Bissaka, wasn't it?
Yeah. But the referee in Paris didn't see anything in it, really. For me, that was the only thing that I could really criticise the referee for. He was pretty poor for both sides. It wasn't just for Leeds United, he was poor for both sides. He did a very, very poor game. But that was an incident that could have led to the yellow card for Wan-Bissaka, and he didn't do it. And Bamford was stupid in what he done. Because a card given to a player for petulance like that, the next offence might be a rash tackle. He's gone.
Yeah.
I thought Paulson was the worst. Yeah, I thought Paulson was I thought that was the worst refereeing performance that we've had, certainly, for a Leeds game that I've watched this season.
The only issue I had with him with regards to Leeds United was that incident to Costa. That should have been a card, but his overall handling the game was bad for both sides. It just wasn't Leeds United, it was for Manchester United as well. He was very, very poor. And I'm sure when he went into the dressing room and he sat down, and the observer would normally give them 15 to 20 minutes to have a shower and have a bit of a chat among themselves before you come in. And you start off by, you normally go to the number one assistant, ask him about his performance, what issues did he have in the game, then the other assistant. Then you would come to the fourth official and you would talk to the fourth official about any issues, how he controlled both dugouts and that type of thing. And then you would go to the referee and he's the last person you talk to, have a chat to him about his performance and that. Now, as an observer, because I was a referee myself, I know they lie. They actually lie. But they forget that because there's so many cameras now in stadiums and that, you just can't get away with it. But I'm sure that referee got a severe slap on the wrist.
What would? Sorry, go on, Gilly.
I'm just going to say, in terms of, I know you're saying he was bad for both sides. They had twice as many free kicks, but regardless of that, the entire game was so stop-start. And you were saying before about Anthony Taylor not being the centre of attention, and it very much felt like Pawson wanted to be. 32 free kicks in a game.
That's one every 3 minutes.
A good game.
He wasn't
one every less than 3 minutes.
He didn't certainly want to be the centre of attraction in the game. The only referee in the Premiership for me that goes down that road is Mike Dean. But Pawson, certainly he lost control of the game. It wasn't that he wanted to be. The game made him of attraction because he lost control of the game after 5 or 6 minutes.
So he's more incompetent than a desire.
It was incompetent. And for once that happens in the early stages of a game, gets into your head, you just completely lose it. I always remember I did the national final some years ago, and quite a number of years back. I just was on a Saturday night. I couldn't believe the game was just at least, I think, about 30, 40 seconds old when there was a rash tackle. And I never forget when I whipped the yellow card out of my pocket and I looked into the sky and I thought, wow, thank you, God. Because that yellow card, so early in the game, dictated the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Everyone knew my stance and where I was, and that was it. It was a great game of football. It went to a penalty shootout in the end. It was an absolute fantastic night of football. But the referee in the United game, he failed in, I'd say, the first 5 minutes to give 2 cards to United players. And he completely lost it. He knew then.
To who, Jimmy? To who?
United.
The scum. You can't call him that here, Jimmy.
But no. Actually, one of my referees, he's a Man United supporter. His twin brother is a Man United supporter. So I have to be very careful what I say. You know, he's my barman as well. So I have to be very careful.
So what would Jimmy? How would you have approached that then? What? Say you're the assessor for Parsons' performance last weekend. How would you have gone about that with him as soon as you're watching the changing room and had that chat? What would you have said to him?
Well, obviously, I would have taken notes during the course of the game. The time you have to, because when you're giving out an assessment, you have to put the time that the cards were issued and that the reason for the cards and that. Obviously, the referee will tell you. You know, may conflict with what you have seen. But I would certainly ask him about the first couple of incidents as to why no action was taken. Now, I know the response that I would get, well, if a car comes out too early, you know, it kind of files the game. That's absolutely, totally rubbish because, you know, you can break someone's leg in an instant. So that shouldn't, whether the game is, you know, 5 seconds old or ended 89 minutes should make no difference whatsoever. And I would also ask him as to why so many free kicks were given in the game. That would indicate to me that he had lost control of the game, that the players were dictating to him. And I would also, with regards to Costa, as to why no action was taken, why he could have gone to the onside monitor, pitch monitor, and had a look at it. Referee doesn't have to, irrespective of VAR, he doesn't have to listen to VAR.
No, of course.
Yeah, they can tell him, but he doesn't have to. He can just say, I'm happy with my decision. Whatever happens inside those 4 lines is down to the referee. VAR is only there to advise, but he doesn't have to listen to the advice on that. But I certainly would have asked him about that incident at Acosta as to why he didn't have a look at it or ask VAR to go into it. And I can understand giving the yellow card to Bamford. It was stupid what he did. His overall, I would tell him straight, his overall performance of the game was below par. It wasn't what you would expect from a person referee. Certainly, the markings will indicate that when you receive your assessment report, which would be, I think, 7.5 or something like that, which would be fairly damning.
And what's the expectation for sort of a Premier League referee? Just to put that in perspective, so
you talk anything from 8.5 to 9.2. You know, anything around that. You know,
so 7.5 is quite really low, is it?
It's pretty bad, yeah. It's pretty bad.
Right.
You know, it's a catalogue of errors that the referee has made.
Yeah. It almost felt that he'd sort of let so much off, and then to book Bamford for that kicking the ball away, like he was trying to set an example too late in the game.
That's exactly he had lost control, completely lost control of the game after 5 minutes, and you know he was then began to assess his authority in booking Bamford because of his petulance. Now I'm not, excusing Bamford for what he done. It was absolutely stupid. You know, you could imagine if he was already on a card. You know, it was a sending off, the second yellow card. But certainly, it was at that stage when the game was gone, completely gone from the referee, he started to assess his authority, and he had lost it completely. If you don't take control of the game from the whistle, that dictates the game. The whistle dictates the game. Also, a lot of people would know this, that the different tones on a whistle also dictates again. If you see a fracas taking part, and you blow the whistle, there's certain ways that you blow it that, people around knows that you're very conscious of what's going on and what's happening in that. And you're in there in it to separate anything before it starts. He didn't do that. He didn't have the ability to do that. Yeah. And you could see by his demeanour as he was walking around the pitch, I think this guy is completely out of his depth here.
Absolutely completely out of his depth. Carl makes a really good point. Casco's typed in there. You touched upon it earlier, Jimmy. He sort of, like you said, played the occasion and was almost in awe of the scum players and let them ref the game. Are you with that belief as well? And is it possible for the players to ref a game?
It certainly is. It's a good point. It certainly is possible for referees to dictate. That even comes back to the point that I was making, that if a referee loses the game in his mind, then he listens to every little bit of tittle-tat that's going on around him and that. And he has lost control. He'll give a free kick. We'll just say we won't use our team or the scum. He'll give a free kick, we'll say, to Liverpool. And oh God, they do the right thing. People is in his ear. A minute later, he reverses. He gives another free kick to Man City. And that is in his head all through the game. Then he's starts to think, have I done the right thing? Have I, I'll make it up. And that does actually happen. Referees do get caught up in that situation. But
I can imagine.
By and large, most of them doesn't. Most of the referees, have a good game. The only referee, as I said, that I have issues with is Mike Dean. I mean, I shouldn't be talking. I shouldn't be talking about referees. Really, derogatory.
Stop you there. You don't have to get personal. You don't have to.
Don't forget, we're live now.
We're live. Don't forget, we can't delete anything you say, Jimmy. It might be used in evidence.
Back to back, he had 2 red cards that the league looked at, and they were thrown out. Yeah. So I think the West Ham one was probably the worst decision I've seen.
Was that Balbuena?
Yeah, that was overturned.
Was that Balbuena, the challenge on Chilwell?
It was over. It was no. He's a foreigner, a defensive player for West Ham. It was overturned by the league committee.
Right. Yeah.
It's just I couldn't understand the logic of him giving it, or even I don't think he even went to VAR that day. I think he just rushed in and gave the red card. I can understand referees going to VAR if they're not in a position to make a clear, precise decision on whatever they're looking at.
That's what it's there for, isn't it? That's what it's there for, ultimately.
Unfortunately, it's not working right.
No,
it's not. I'd safely say that Leeds United has been punished more unfairly with offsides through VAR than any team in the Premiership so far this season.
Well, hopefully, Jimmy, they'll have time in the hopefully we'll have a bit of time in the summer and they can iron things out. You've had another question in, Jimmy, from Derek. What are the repercussions for a ref if they have a bad game?
Well, I remember he was the first black referee in the Premiership. Rennie, I think his name was. He was an excellent referee, absolutely spot on. Of course, he had good training. He was a copper.
Right.
But I remember he had an absolute horrendous game. I think it was a United match he was involved in. And of course, Alex Ferguson refereed. He refereed a lot of Man United games. He did intimidate a lot of officials and that. But because he had such a bad game, he was downgraded to the Championship for a couple of weeks.
So it's almost a demotion then. Is that probably the worst thing that can happen? They never get sort of the license taken away from them or their refereeing badges or anything like that?
Your license can only be taken away, if you do something caught up gambling or something like, game fix, something like that. Or that you're just not, up to refereeing. I remember I actually done it to a chap here some years ago. I told him that he should take up gardening.
Take up gardening.
It was right ways of telling the chap that he just wasn't up to it. And but you have to be honest. You have to be brutally honest and tell people.
Yeah.
You know, those guys are getting paid huge sums of money.
Yeah, fair
so
point.
Just while we've digressed a little bit away from specifically Leeds elements, I don't know if you saw the game, the City Spurs final. But there was an incident in that where Ruben Diaz made what I felt was an absolutely superb tackle, and the result was Harry Kane screaming and a free kick, and I think he got booked for it.
Yeah.
Do you remember the incident and what were your view of it?
Absolutely, totally wrong. I thought that was a very, very poor decision to give a card for it.
One of the best tackles I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, I can understand the free kick being given, but the booking, absolutely, totally wrong. The tackle, I think, came from behind, but he actually got the ball, but it's not so much, getting the ball, it's the follow through that was involved in it.
The pundits were saying that the free kick was given because he may have grazed his foot before he touched the ball.
If you look at it, now I remember that particular incident. It was only last Sunday, wasn't it? There was a bit of a follow through after getting the ball, and that's why the free kick was given. But it certainly wasn't to get a card. There was no intent. There was no malice. There was no force in the tackle or anything like that. But there was a little kind of a follow through, and I would have given a free kick, but certainly not the yellow card. But I thought the referee had an actually good game in it. He let it flow. There was no major issue in it.
Yeah. No, I don't remember the referee, which tends to be a sign of a referee having a good game. It was just that one. I played as a centre half, and I wasn't at any good level, but I played as a centre half, and I loved a big tackle, and that for me was something that I loved doing. Going in and cleaning somebody out when you get the ball, and you get the ball, you get the man, but it's not a non-contact sport, and it feels like
exactly
going that way.
I always remember a manager used to manage Castlebar Celtic, and a team from another county were playing Celtic one Thursday evening, and the referee was from outside the county. And I spoke to the Celtic were beaten, I think it was 4-0. I think it was maybe 3 or 4-0 were beaten. And I spoke to the manager of the home team and I asked him about the referee. And he didn't even remember the referee. And this is just after the game. And the reason why, because the referee, he absolutely, from start to finish, he was on top of everything in the game. He wasn't the centre of attraction. He blew the whistle when he had to. He was involved. If there was any little bit of practice, he was there, sorted out. There was no issues. I don't think he actually had a card, if memory serves me right. I don't think he actually had to produce a card during the course of the game. So when the team is beaten, with 3 or 4 goals, and the manager says, the referee can't remember much about him. Yeah. That tells you that he had a good game. Overall, referees have a hard job, they've been very fortunate with the pandemic so far because some of the decisions that has been made, if there's 30 or 40,000 people in the stadium, they might get out of
it. Just one more thing, Jimmy, before we let you go and have your nightcap and whatever else you've got to do this evening. There was I've just remembered there was an incident during the game as well. Luke Ayling shouting down to the linesman about VAR and telling him to use his fucking flag. You got a flag there, fucking use it. It's almost like the referees and the linesmen are scared to make a decision because they've got VAR there, and that could ultimately make them look pretty stupid if they're wrong for whatever. But that's what they're paid to do. They're paid to make a decision. Otherwise, we might as well just have robots there doing it.
Yeah, well, that female assistant referee, I think it was a Man City game early on in the season. City scored a goal, but she put the flag up for offside.
Mm-hmm.
And when VAR looked at it, the goal stood and that. But to me, she's a testament to a good assistant referee. We have a saying with assistant referees: park it and move on. If you make a decision and it goes against you, just park it, get out of it, just move on. And she has the ability to do that. But again, that comes down to the referee on the day. The referee can influence a lot of what the assistant is thinking of that, because prior to the start of the game, the referee will, in the dressing room, will tell his two assistants what he wants of them. Their area, what they have to look out for, and all that type of thing. Don't call me over unless it's necessary. You're 100% sure. Don't give a penalty unless you're 100% sure. Don't call me over and tell me, I think it's a penalty. If I don't see it, you make the decision on that. And a lot of that, inconsistency between assistant referees and referees is down to the referee not giving the proper instructions prior to the start of the game. They should take time to sit down with the officials and go through, even at half time, when you come in at half time, you would go through the issues in the first half. Watch out, Luke, just watch out for him. Matt, another fella, just keep an eye on him. And that's what they should be doing, should be talking about. And that I've seen occasions where you're not supposed to actually go into the dressing room, the observer at half time, but I've often gone in and some be talking about, did you see that game last night? And I just walk out. They should be talking about what happened in the first half, how to deal with Luke and Matt in the second half. They are two potential red cards.
Good luck looking after me and Matt, I tell you.
That's what happens.
I get where you're coming from, though, completely.
If a referee gives proper instructions and he installs that little extra bit of confidence and belief into the assistant referee by doing that, but the Leeds game, none of them had it. It was just
it's leadership, isn't it? It's just showing leadership.
I think that stemmed as well from Craig Pawson. If he's not going to make a decision, then why? The linesmen and lineswomen, why would they make a decision and ultimately try, be thrown under the bus? If he's not got the bollocks to make a decision as a referee, the man in the middle, the lines, that's going to rub off on the linesmen, lineswomen, whoever's there running it. And I guess that's probably going to dent their confidence as well. So they're not going to want to make a decision. Is that right? I mean, I don't know. I've never been a referee or a linesman.
Well, we were very fortunate before I finish up here in Mayo. We got a lad into refereeing and never played much football in his life. But in order to see how good he was, we sent him up to what we call the School of Excellence. And they decide what his best attribute is going to be, whether it's going to be an assistant referee or a referee. So they found that as an assistant referee, he would be top. And he actually did turn out to be top. He was that good of an official that Scotland didn't have an assistant with the qualities that he had. So he was assigned by UEFA to a group of Scottish officials as the number one assistant referee. He made decisions, as he said, one flag can be the difference between 10 and 20 million. That's the way he put it to me. One bad flag can be 10 and 20 million. And he's so dedicated. This lad actually gave up his UEFA and FIFA license as an assistant referee to referee in the Electricity League here in Ireland. And I've no doubt that next season he will be back on the UEFA and FIFA panel as a referee, a top referee.
Brilliant. Couple of things, Jimmy. There's a bit of love for you before we go. So Derek Moore said we need Jimmy on VAR for Leeds games, and then he's commented again asking if you know a John Kelly from Kildare who used to ref at a high level in Ireland. He's now retired, and he works with him. Do you know a John Kelly?
I can't say I do know. I know it's John Kelly from Louth, but I don't know John Kelly from Kildare. I know quite a few people from Kildare, actually. But my late wife worked for a publican here in Castlebar, where I live.
Right.
He was from Kildare, Kildare town.
So the answer's no, Derek. You need to ask him if he knows Jimmy the Ref, because Jimmy the Ref's famous, and I'm sure you'll know him. Good stuff. Thanks for your time, Jimmy. I know it's gone on a little bit longer than we usually do, but we've covered plenty there, I think.
My pleasure. I enjoy it, lads. Absolutely.
We've gone a little bit off piste and gone on about sort of third world problems.
I'm marking this down because when we do meet up, it'll be a couple of beers from each of you, okay?
Yeah, 100%. Thanks ever so much for your time, Jimmy.
Cheers, lads.
Give us a salute before you go.
See you soon.
Give us a little salute, Jimmy. He's gone.
Good luck.
There we go. Cheers, man.